Hello, I'm Antoinette, and you're here at Chick Chat and Chill. We're hosting a podcast with Laura, and we talk about all different topics every week. Sometimes they're fun, sometimes they're informational. So get ready to laugh and learn. And let me introduce Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Fickett, and today we're going to talk about financial stress equals financial mess, which is my wheelhouse. I own Fickett Financial Coaching. I'm a CPA, I have an MBA. I love coaching people on how to level up their financial game. So, as far as financial stress goes, one thing we talked about on our podcast last week when we were talking about the New Year's resolutions, people have all kinds, and a lot of them relate to debt, debt free, and they have financial goals. So, we wanted to touch upon that today, and it's one of my favorite topics. So, hopefully, you guys it'll be a little informative, fun, and entertaining. But do you hear people talking a lot, Antoinette, about, wanting to reduce their debt? I'm sure.
I think a topic that stood out to me was I remember my pastor was doing a sermon, and he said, I hate doing sermons on money because when people hear that, it's like one of the lowest attendance in a sermon because people don't want to hear it. But he said, as a pastor, he goes, anytime people come to their pastor, it's usually with problems, whether it's marital, whatever.
Right.
And he said, 9 times out of 10, it's money related. So he goes, as a pastor, I'm doing a disservice if I actually don't speak finances,
Right.
you
I
know.
actually ran a financial stewardship Bible study, and I tried to talk with people about how I fully believe that everything that's been given to me is a gift from God, including finances. So if I'm a steward, a financial steward, I might treat my relationship with money a little bit differently than if I think that it's all mine, right? So when money comes my way, if I'm a steward, well, I'm going to give some back to the person that gave it to me, God, and then I'm going to manage it differently. It's kind of like, if you're working for a company, you manage their resources differently than you manage your own, because the consequences of not managing those resources means you might get fired. But you mismanage your own resources and you should probably fire yourself or hire a
Well,
coach.
the other thing you hear all the time is people go, "Oh, if I only won the lottery." If you can't manage living on a 30,000 a year income, you're not going to be able to manage winning the lottery. You're just going to have bigger problems, bigger financial issues, and it doesn't all of a sudden change your relationship with money. If you don't have a good relationship with money, your income level really is irrelevant.
Yeah, it's totally true. I am when I'm coaching people, I tell people that your relationship with money, or how you spend money, or your thoughts about money, and all of those things come into play. And really, it boils down to education, right? If I go and play Monopoly, and I joke and I say I play Monopoly for real, but if I play Monopoly and I don't know any of the rules, and I sit down and you know all the rules, you're gonna win. I mean, there's so many rules in that game. Like, most of us don't even play by the rules when we play that game. But if you know all the rules, you're going to win. So if you level up your financial education and you know more of the rules as to how, the credit card companies work, and how credit score works, and how to actually spend below your means, and all of those things, I firmly believe that nothing bad can come of it by leveling up your education. People increase their education in their industry all the time. You're not going to go on the job and know just as much on day one as day 300.
Yeah.
Your boss would be like, you're not learning at all. Hello.
No, and honestly, the wealthiest people in the world, they'll be the first ones to pull up a chair if it's something they don't learn that they could benefit from.
That's
You
true.
know, you're there's to think that you're so smug that you know everything, or to have the opposite effect of, oh, I'm so lost with finances that you just want to hide your head in the sand, and the ostrich approach isn't exactly the best approach either. So,
It's absolutely true. So I am a huge fan of teaching people how to be wealthy, no matter where they're at. So a lot of people talk about, well, when my kids grow up, or when I retire, or when, and time is not abundant. We have no idea. I mean,
yeah.
today could be the last day that we're here. But money is abundant. I mean, just in the town that people live in, the city that they live in, there's billions and billions of dollars, right? So if people could really get a sense of, where am I and how can I be wealthy where I am and continue to grow my wealth, I think that's a better thought than, like, the lottery example. That's going to make you rich. but is it going to make you wealthy? And if you don't have a good relationship feeling that that kind of money is going to make you a better person, if you have the thoughts, the negative thoughts that I grew up with, where, you know, money was going to make you greedy and snobby, and, you know, you'd have your nose in there, like, or money doesn't grow on trees, or it's evil, or you have any of those negative thoughts, you're not going to retain the money, because who wants to be evil? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some people out there evil, but not nobody that watches our podcast, that's for sure.
They're all angels. But I another thing that kind of comes to mind too is when you're talking about money, a lot of, like you said, a lot of people confuse that quote from the Bible where they say money is the root of all evil, and they think that's what the Bible says. That's actually not what the Bible says at all. It's that the love of money is the root of all evil. And the context is very huge there because money is just a means. It's a simple means to exchange for goods or services. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's usually those people that hold on so tight to money
True.
that it's you're less likely to have it free flowing in you if you have this firm grasp of this, someone's going to take it from me mentality. More likely than not it's going to happen, or something you're going to make it happen to yourself, unfortunately.
And if you've never experienced the love of money being the root of all evil, just have a parent die, and you will see exactly exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh my God, like that tears families apart. It's crazy.
It's unbelievable. I have real life experiences that we could share some other time,
Yeah.
of that happening in my own family and everything like that, because it's the love of money. You don't feel like you said, you want to hold on to it. And this philosophical conversation, we could go on, but I'm sure some of our readers are going to want some practical
Yeah,
knowledge.
let's get
Yeah,
let's
let's
get
get
in some deep
some
dive in.
practical knowledge here. So, I hear all the time about financial problems. Never been out of the financial industry my whole entire life. Was in public accounting, and then went and started my financial coaching business. And one thing I always hear is, I have credit cards, I have all this debt, and my credit score is not good. What can I do? Is there anything that I can possibly do? And I tell them, you can pay down your debt quickly. You need a plan. And the plan really is to write them all down. Don't bury your head in the sand, right? Write them all down. Look at the interest rates. Some are, unfortunately, probably 29%, 30%. I know they're so bad. Put them, the one that the largest interest rate gets the number one slot, even though they don't deserve it, right? And then you just put them all in order by interest rate. Some people make what I feel is the mistake of putting them by, well, this one only has 500, let me try and pay that off quickly, versus a 5,000. Well, if that only has a 10% interest rate or introductory rate, and you're paying 30% on the 5,000, that 5,000's got to go.
Yeah.
So I tell people, categorize it by interest rate, and then put minimum payments on 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, how many you have. Auto payments. Don't even think about it. You've got $300 in auto payments a month on those, and then put as much money as you can towards number one, and that will pay down the debt. But I'm also a huge fan of not just focusing on debt. I like to tell people, focus on your past debt, your present enjoyment of that 6-inch piece of paper money, and the future. So have you come across people talking about like credit cards? I'm sure you
Oh
have.
yeah. I actually heard a neat tip where if you're constantly using credit cards to pay for things, and they all have, it's one thing if you're using it because you're getting some kind of bonus and you pay it off at the end of the month, this doesn't apply to you. But if you're the ones that use the credit cards and you have this revolving balance, the best thing to do, I heard, you could weigh in, but stop using your credit cards to pay for stuff and start using cash, because you're less likely to overspend using your cash than on the cards. Cards just seem like it's, you know what, it's there, I'll pay it later. And the fact is, if you don't have the money for it now, you shouldn't be buying it, honestly. And people don't have that mindset. I mentioned to this to Laura this earlier, but how most poor people spend like they make ten times more than they make. And most very wealthy people spend like they make 10 times less than they make.
Yes,
And
yeah.
that contributes to their bottom line. So if you're buying things that you don't have the money to make, or it's one thing to invest in something that will generate money back to you. But if it's a depreciating asset and you don't have the money to buy it, then you can't afford it. It's that simple.
Yeah, I mean, years and years ago, when my parents were growing up, I know we're both first generation Americans here, but my mother used an envelope system, right? And so if there was no money in the envelope, then the answer was no. There was no way. I mean, they borrowed money to buy things like if you had to buy a vehicle or you had to buy larger things, they were able to borrow money. But the idea of this credit card debt is new. It's in the last
Yeah.
century that it's been happening to people. But you can go to the cash based system. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, I personally like to use credit cards for their rewards, and I am one of those people that pays it off. And I like to juice as much money out of them as I possibly can because it's a game for me. But if you can't do that, you have to go back to the basics. You might have to do
Yeah.
the envelope method, so just so that you understand the value of what I'm buying, and you can use what I call a cost benefit analysis. So let's take, I mean, everything's so expensive. I don't even know what a pack of gum costs anymore, but a $5 pack of gum, let's say, is that $5 really worth the benefit that you're going to get from the cost? Like every single purchase, I'm like, what's the cost of this and what's the benefit? And it's different for everyone. If you love chewing gum, $5 is worth it. I don't love chewing gum, $5 isn't worth it. So I'm using this cost benefit analysis, and I do it for everything. I remember talking to a friend of mine that loves computers, and he spent like $10,000 on a computer. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like all I do on my computer is work and shop. Like, I there that's not $10,000. That cost is not worth it to me for the benefit. But a vacation, and when I spend time making memories with my kids, that's where I'll spend more. But I will try and save up beforehand and
Yeah.
not put it on a credit card, and then my $10,000 vacation ends up costing 20,000 in the end by the time all the fees I've
Yeah, I
paid.
I think people forget about that. They're like, "Oh, they're so busy. Oh, I'll get this versus this and this is $10 cheaper." But then you put it on the credit card and then in the end it ends up costing double by the time you
Oh
pay
my,
off that
or
purchase
triple.
or on the credit card, which is crazy. And actually a funny story, I remember when I was a kid and I was shopping with my mom and she had no credit cards. She owned all her homes, she owned commercial property, vehicles, and we were at a store, it was like Bloomingdale's or something, and they're like, "Oh, you could save 20% if you open up a credit card." She's like, "Sure," She's like, "Maybe I should get one." And she was declined because your credit actually isn't your assets, it's your revolving debt.
Right, right.
How
She didn't
good.
have any.
Yeah, she had zero debt and therefore that always kind of stuck with me as something funny, but
It is funny. I've talked with clients and like, I don't understand. I'm paying my stuff off and I'm doing all the things that I think are right, but there's an algorithm for
yeah.
that credit score. And if you're
Maybe,
not playing that game,
yeah, maybe talk a little bit about credit score, what brings it up and down, because there are a lot, like people always think, oh, it's if I pay down all my debts, then I have the best credit, and that's not necessarily it.
yeah,
It's how much credit are you, revolving credit do you have versus how much you're using,
yeah,
is a big thing.
that is a huge thing.
Yeah.
People often say to me, oh, I think I'm doing all the right things. Thinking you're doing the right things and knowing you're doing the right things are two totally different things. That's
Mm-hmm.
where the education comes in. And they do change the algorithms for credit scores sometimes. But for example, in your 20% off if you apply for this credit card, I do that sometimes for Christmas. Then I pay it off, and because I want the discount, right? Especially if I'm spending $200, I'm going to say 40. But then I cancel the credit card, and people say, well, doesn't that hurt your credit? Because, yes, when I initially applied for the credit card, it hit my credit as an inquiry. And that's one piece of a credit score, just the inquiry. And then when I close it, like the amount of available credit changes. And so that changes a little bit. However, what they don't realize is part of your credit score is based on your history. So if I have one credit card for 20 years and today I open up a new one, my average credit is now only 10. It takes those two credit cards and the average is now only 10, whereas yesterday it was 20 because I had that one. Now that impact to your credit score is more important than the other one. So when I cancel that credit card, my longevity goes back up to 20 and I'm actually in a better position than I was before.
Yeah.
But because I know that, I know whether I can apply or not apply. I know what I can do and what I shouldn't do and when, and I can time the market. And for me, I try to make it fun for the people I coach, and I think it's fun, but it does sound probably a little boring, I guess. Try to make it fun, but it sounds boring.
Yeah.
But credit is, I mean, I think it's a huge problem for people. I did not grow up in a wealthy situation by any means. I'm the youngest of seven. My mother didn't work. My father had come here with a quarter in his pocket from Italy, and but they didn't use credit. So if
Yeah.
I said, "Mom, can I have money to go to the movies?" and she would go look at the envelopes, and she said, "Sure," and she gave me a little bit of money to go with my friends, and then we ate pasta for the rest of the week with no meat. I know which envelope she took it out of.
Yeah.
She took it out of the food envelope.
Yeah.
You
Aw.
know, I know. I look back and I'm like, oh, I feel so
I
bad. But
I remember like I got my first job when I was 11 and I worked as a nanny for a 2 and 3 year old. So during the summer it was like 70 hours a week. And but I liked that at least when I went to wanted to go to the movies, I didn't have to hear no. I got tired of like groveling for, just basic things. So I liked having that money and some finances. And I remember I was talking to somebody, who's, a couple generations younger, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't have to work. I wasn't poor."
oh well,
And I, it,
maybe
it
they were
was
poor of spirit with
it,
those kind of
no,
words.
but it wasn't even that. I mean, I think you're doing a disservice to your children to just say like, "Oh, you shouldn't work because you're not poor." I mean, instilling some kind of work ethic at an early age, I don't think is a bad thing ever, and it should have nothing to do with where you fall on the financial scale.
No, I
You,
mean, we're not meant to just sit around and do nothing, right?
no.
We're meant to work. It's nice if you can have the choice to work in an enjoyable position and not worry about the money. That's just not the reality for most people, right? I
But
mean,
even the people that are very wealthy, they still find things that are, where they give their time and money and they still work. I mean, they still do something. To just sit around and do nothing, you're just going to get poorer and poorer.
yes,
It's not a wealthy mindset. Maybe we should
yes.
talk a little bit about some of the mindsets that wealthy people have versus poor.
Yeah, I was
I
just
think,
thinking about that. It's a good segue. Because one of the things I was really thinking about when I was younger, I was so like in the survival mindset of finances, like you. I wanted to go to the movies. I wanted to do things, and so I got a job, and I found the money to get to do things, and then I would spend the money, and that was my financial picture: make money, spend money, make money, spend money. That was my whole entire plan. And some people don't get out of that stage. Thankfully, I did because I went into the accounting field. But that is not the mindset that I have now that I share with my children or that a lot of people that have grown their wealth have. They're looking at assets. And some people I talk to, they have no assets. They purchase their home and it's debatable, depends on the financial coach you talk to as to whether or not it's an asset or if it's drawing money. It really does draw money from your cash flow, but it might, grow in value and might be an asset. But everything else, your vehicle, is it an asset? I mean, it's depreciating, which means it costs, it's
yeah.
worth less and less every year. The clothes that you buy, the things. Amazon is a frequent visitor to my home. If you share this, um, I'm not buying assets on Amazon, am I? I do have Amazon stock. So, one thing I like to talk to people about is, have you ever thought about buying stock? And people think, oh, mind blown, like, how could I purchase stock? Right. But if you just purchase $25 a week in stock, and honestly, it does matter what you purchase, but really, if you're not purchasing any stock, then it doesn't matter. That's an asset. That's an asset you're buying. And by the end of the month, if you've put in that 100, it might be worth 120. Now, if you put that $25 towards pizza, Starbucks, or whatever, it just went in the toilet at the end of the week. It
Yeah.
didn't matriculate into anything. So if you don't have any kind of assets, you can't earn enough in your lifetime to be wealthy.
Yeah.
Even making $100,000 a year, which is a decent income for 40 years, you think, wow, that's $4 million. I could be wealthy, but you've got insurance. And if you have kids, and I have 4 kids, and you've got car payments and you've got mortgage payment, you've got everything, that $4 million is going to slide through your fingers quickly. You
Yeah.
need to buy assets and grow your income in more than one means
Yeah.
possible
No.
to be wealthy. And I don't, if that's a financial goal for people and they think, well, I'll just save more. Saving is great,
Yeah.
but it can't be your only financial strategy. There has to be more.
Yeah, I think another important thing to look at is, when you're looking to buy something, what is your motivation? Truly wealthy people, when they look to buy something, they look, what will that give me? Will it save me time? Will it make me money? Will it bring happiness to my life? If your main goal is like what brand it is or who am I impressing, this isn't a wealthy mindset. The people that run around with this type of showy usually don't have, a pot to piss in, unfortunately. Like I have a friend who their husband was a teacher in one of the poorest sections up north where I'm from. And I mean, most of these people are on welfare and they have the latest iPhone, the $500 sneakers, and they don't even have a home. I mean, it's a shame. And then you have, you know, uh, you know, there's a lot of wealthy towns where I lived. So, a lot of stars and celebrities live up there. They're running around in pickup trucks and ripped jeans. The watch they're wearing is the Casio with the neat buttons they found on the golf course. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, true story. But they're not looking to impress people the way poor people are looking to impress people. So, you know, you you should really focus on getting your life into a place where you don't need to prove yourself,
Yeah, I
you
mean
know?
that we're gonna touch upon that next week. We're gonna talk about happiness, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the difference is if people have wealth and they have available money and they don't stress about money, that's where the financial stress causes financial mess, right? They don't if they're not stressed about money, it's not that they feel the need to buy something to make them happy. I've
Yeah.
been in a position though where sometimes buying something nice made me feel good,
Yeah.
and if any of you share that sentiment, I'm with you. And it does spiral and it could be out of control, but sometimes I just wanted to feel good. And so that was going to fill that need, but it only fills the temporary need. So we have to look even further. Like, what is my overarching goal? Do I want to feel great now or do I want to feel great forever? And eventually I made the decision I want to feel great forever. I don't want this
Yeah.
consumerism or this temporary feel good
I mean,
to impact my finances anymore. And that's where I was talking about the cost benefit analysis. For me, if a belt looks nice and it's holding up my pants, it doesn't have to have a label on it where somebody looks at me and says, "Oh, she has this kind of belt." I don't have that need for significance anymore. Look, I'm wearing a t-shirt, right? I mean, and this is actually by design, right?
and
So
your
I'm thinking,
pants are falling down. No, I'm
I,
kidding.
I do have a belt on. Just kidding. It's just teasing me. But this is actually by design. I figure we're going to do podcasts every week. I'm going to try and wear a different t-shirt. When I run out, people are going to have to start sending me t-shirts. Right? The one I'm wearing today I got from my daughter. She works for the Delray Beach Open. So that's what I'm wearing today. So
Yeah.
you're going to see me in a different t-shirt every week, but I don't have a need for significance. I
Yeah.
don't have to walk in here and people think like I'm some sort of movie star. I am who I am, and you take it or you leave it. And so I'm not spending money anymore on things that don't bring me joy. I actually love this color, by the way. My daughter got it for
I
me, so
it looks good on you.
with the gray background.
Yeah. But another thing I want to bring up, I know my sister invited me once. There was some kind of dating thing she wanted to go to. So she's like, she can't go alone to anything. So she's like, can you come? And she invited some other friends. So we go there, and it was right after the market was falling, and she lost her job,
Oh
and I
man.
was in a financial place where I wasn't looking to spend. Like, I really had to hold on to my dollars, so I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't really do a lot of the stuff. So we went, and I got like a water at the bar. Like, we were only there for a couple hours. I got a water. We hung out. My sister ordered an appetizer. She got a couple drinks and whatever. Now, meanwhile, she told me earlier she was not going to be able to pay her rent. She's like, I'm not going to pay my rent. I'm not going to be able to pay my rent this
Mm.
month. And then we go there. She dropped, I don't know, it was like an appetizer and drinks. Maybe it was like $120.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was like, why did you do that? And she's like, I go, you could have used that towards your rent. She goes, well, I wouldn't have been able to make my rent. And I'm like, I'm sure your landlady would have been much happier if you said, I can't pay you the, $1,200, but here's $120. Can you work
Right.
with me? And I think they, unfortunately, it's kind of that give up mindset that we talked about last week, where if I can't make this goal,
Yeah.
then all goals fall out of the window. Where with finances, every little bit helps. So don't ever think, and I'm not saying we both went to the same event. We both had a good time.
Right.
I paid $0 and she paid 120. So it's not saying that, I'm not saying you could go to every event and pay $0, but you could pick and choose, and it's not going to cut down on your good times, but just be smart about where you're putting those dollars. I'm sure that would have went much better towards food, shelter, and clothing. Like if you're not meeting your basics, probably not the best time to, go on
Go drinking and buying
go
out.
drinking and, appetizers that you weren't even hungry for.
Well, but here's the thing, though, in that example, I mean, you have to be comfortable with just getting a water, right? Sometimes it's uncomfortable to just go somewhere and order water. And there is a happy medium, right? You don't have to spend the 120, but maybe you could spend 20. And this is where I talk about like the past, present, and future. So some people go through programs, and I have an 8-week course, but not my course. Some people go through other programs where it's just, I want to be debt free. I want to be debt free. They focus on debt. And then they end up quitting because at the end of 3 years or 5 years, they're still in debt. And because maybe it was going to take 8 years or something like that. And I tell people, okay, let's do past, present, and future. Maybe instead of 8 years to get out of debt, I'm going to work with somebody and it's going to be 9 years. Maybe it's going to take a year longer, but I'm going to help them get $1,000 in savings because I figure 1,000 can cover most emergencies, like your car breaks down, battery, whatever. And I want them to be able to go out with their sister and spend like $20, maybe not the 120, but I want them to be able to enjoy, being able to spend a little bit of money on themselves.
Yeah.
It's when you totally forget about your present obligations or your past obligations or your future obligations and you stay in one bucket. I think where the problem is, like your sister, she's like, well, I can't make rent anyway, so I might as well just do this. No, I mean, there is a happy medium where you just do a little bit. So I tell people, if you have 100, you put 30 towards your debt, you spend 30 now, and you save 30 towards the future, and then, tithe 10.
Yeah.
I think that's a better formula for success in people's financial wheelhouse because then they feel good. I'm not a huge fan of deprivation, and we can't even get into my patience level is like, it's a constant work in process, just like the push-ups from last week. It's something I don't really want to wait. So I think instead of thinking like I can't afford it, I think how can I afford it?
Yeah. Well, I think that brings up kind of a good point because there's so many people that they buy these homes, these grandiose homes, and then they spend all this time away from the home working jobs that they hate to pay for a home that they're never in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this cycle that I don't know, you really got to sit back and just go, what am I really trying to get out of this? Like at the end of the day, I think everyone wants to be happy.
Yes.
So is happiness really paying for a home you're barely in? Or I mean, that might be happiness for someone. For someone else, maybe it'd be more time with the family and maybe, just really think about those choices. And they shouldn't be because your neighbor just got a new car, so you need a new car, or because, your friend did this and you feel inadequate because, like, really look at your reasoning behind your motivation for your purchases and your wants and goals.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge. So I think we could talk a little bit about what we're going to discuss next week, which I think is going to be a super fun topic. So one thing I get, which I always find surprising, but people always ask me, why am I so happy? And I always thought that was a good thing, but it perplexes people. So,
They think it's fake.
well, they're just like, I go in the gym, everyone looks miserable, and you're like this Mexican jumping bean, like in this other world. But, I get that a lot. And or people just assume I have this life that's like marshmallows and roses and clearly nothing's going wrong ever. And I think everybody has stuff, but I think how you cope with it is huge. So
Mm-hmm.
I think next week we'll dive in a little bit on how to find your happiness. And I think a lot of people struggle with depression or getting down, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they get into these funks
Yeah.
about how do I snap out of that or what do I do? And I think we could really touch upon some key aspects that are going to be implementable immediately and will just grow over time. Because in the end, do you ever hear that John Lennon quote?
I'm sure he has a lot.
No, there was one. It was, yeah, I'm probably going to ruin it, but it was something like in kindergarten, his teacher was asking everybody in the class, what do you want to be when you grow up? So there was like firefighter or whatever. And they got to him and he said, happy. And the teacher goes, I think you misunderstood the question. And then he said, I think you're misunderstanding life.
Yeah. Wow. That is a
Yeah.
good quote if she
Yeah.
did it right.
Yeah.
Um,
But,
I think it's going to be a great topic because people do ask me, and I've been through divorce, and my parents are passed away, and you've had family trauma, and there's all kinds of things that have come our way. There's not been 1 year where there's been nothing wrong happening for me. And how do you stay happy through that? And I don't even know sometimes if people know what the word happiness means anymore. Society is, it's getting to be hard out there. But we could have talked about finances for so long. We didn't even touch upon budgeting or any of that kind of stuff, or inflation, or how to
yeah.
afford food. And so, how do you maintain happiness amidst all of the unhappiness? I think it's going to be a great topic, and how people can shift their focus. I was somebody who decades ago, if I had 80,000 thoughts in a day, 60,000 of them were negative, and now I've shifted it where 60,000 are positive, and I reserve those 20,000 negative ones for mainly driving. And
I have a trick on that one. I'll share.
yes, that's the impatience part of me. I need those negative thoughts for when the impatience kicks in. So I think it's going to be a great topic. I hope you tune in for that session. I hope you enjoyed today. Comment, we're learning just along with you, but never stop learning. And Antoinette,
Never stop laughing. We'll see you next week. Come join us.
Buying your first home or your fifth home can seem daunting until you find just the right one. And once you've found the perfect place for the next chapter of your life, make sure it's a great investment with the right home inspector. Home Team works with homeowners and real estate agents to make the process quick and easy, but never sacrificing quality or completeness. At Home Team, our inspectors always work as a team, combining years of experience and areas of expertise for an unmatched home inspection process. We inform new home buyers without alarming them so they can confidently move forward with their dream home purchase. And we help home buyers and agents close faster with less time to the inspection from the time it's ordered. Inspectors you can trust that are fast and accurate every time. That's the Home Team difference.